Says the Gemara, Pshita. Yeah? Kakadosh Boker Tov Masechet Yevamot Daf Amud Aleph 9181. We just mentioned that if a woman was a bat Israel, not a Kohen, okay, not a Kohen. Shenifsela mina kiuna. Now she becomes psula to the kiuna. Remember, the case was she was married happily ever after. The husband went out of town, and one witness comes and says that the husband dropped dead. What happened? She got married to the second husband. All of a sudden, right, he comes back, the first husband from the dead. So says the Gemara, the Mishnah, if she was a bat Israel, she becomes a spot from the kiuna. Says the Gemara, from the Shita, obviously, right? Why? Since she was livala beisu, she becomes like a zonah. Zonah is a surah like Kohen. Says the Gemara, says no. This is talking about that she becomes disqualified for a bat levi. She becomes disqualified through maaseh if she had znut. Remember that a bat levi is like a bat Kohen. Bat Kohen, if she's now divorced, she goes back and she doesn't have any children. She goes back to the father's house. She's about to be truma. Bat levi, the same thing. She gets divorced. She doesn't have any children. She goes back to the father's house. And she's allowed to eat maaseh rishon. So here, the chidush is that she's going to become disqualified for maaseh rishon. So says the Gemara, said, where did you ever see a bat Kohen becoming disqualified? Yes, we heard that. But a bat levi from maaseh is going to become disqualified because of znut. Where do you see that? Tanya, we heard the opposite. Leviya shenishpet. If you have a woman that she's a leviya, that she was captured, and she was forced to have relations. So tlila maaseh, we give her maaseh, and she's allowed to eat maaseh. So Rav Sheshat answered, you're right. Knasa. Here it's a knas midrabanan, which means even though you're right, usually a leviya would be able to eat maaseh if she was forced, violated. But here, the fact that she did it willingly, that she got married to the second husband, and there was only one ed, so therefore it's a knas of the rabbis that she's not allowed to eat anymore maaseh rishon. Bat Kohen, if she was a bat Kohen, she's not allowed to be truma. Instead of being a truma, afilu betruma d'Rabbanan, says the Gemara. Even if it's going to be truma d'Rabbanan, she's disqualified. Next, nobody is going to inherit her ketubah, not the yoshim of the first husband or the second husband. Ketubah mayavita. What are you talking about? Where's the ketubah? Right? We just said at the beginning of the Mishnah, she doesn't get a ketubah from either or. Why? Because we want it to be easy for them to get rid of her. Right? Remember, what was the reason why a person has a ketubah? So you can't get rid of her like a pair of shoes. Imagine you just bought a pair of shoes, right? Tomorrow you go back, you give them back. Imagine if every single woman you get married to her, then you could throw her out without anything. Right? People would come and they would get rid of her within 2 minutes. And right? So in order to protect the woman, right, that she's not a pair of shoes, right? We make sure that she has a ketubah. Okay? Mitsuyan. But here there's no ketubah. So what are you talking about now? The yoshim of a ketubah. There's no ketubah. Rav Papa says, no, there's an extra ketubah. Ketubah benim dichtin. Right? There's a t'nai of the ketubah, which is called benim dichtin or benim zecharim. So therefore there she also loses this. Right? So it says, obviously, if she lost the regular ketubah, she loses the extras of the ketubah. Right? If you're going to tell me the entire sale was annulled, so the extras which are on the sale are also going to be annulled. It says the Gemara, I would have thought to say, Ledidi, right? Sorry, Ledida, right? The Avda Yisura Kansura Bana. Lezara Lotatsura Bana. I would have thought to say she loses the ketubah because she did Avera. But what did her children do? Her children didn't do any Avera. So why would they lose this ketubah benin dichli? So it says the Gemara, no, that she also loses the ketubah benin dichli, which means the children lose out as well because of her action. Next, the last class of the Mishnah. The two brothers, now what happened, they found out that the guy came back from the dead. She started screaming, either of the first one or the second, right? She starts screaming in Betty that what's going on? The first husband's there, right? Now you have two husbands in Betty, right? And they both drop dead, or one of them drops dead. You choose whichever one. Yeah, the drops dead. So now there has to be Yibum or Chalitza. Says the Gemara, the Mishnah, they have to do Chalitza, they cannot do Yibum. Says the Gemara, Afiv shel Rishon Choletz, right? Midoraita. The brother of the first one has to do Chalitza Midoraita. Velo mi'avem, he cannot do Yibum Midrabanan, only Midrabanan. Why? Because we're saying that maybe she's already considered married to the second husband. Technically speaking, she's not. She's married to the first husband. Achiv shel Sheni, he has to do Chalitza Midrabanan, not Midoraita. Because velo mi'avem, obviously he can do Yibum. Lo Midoraita, lo Midrabanan. He can never do it. So that's the difference between the first husband and the second husband. Remember, the first husband, she's still married to the first husband. That's what we're saying. The second husband is nothing. It's wallow. Right? Why? Because at the end of the day, she was still married to the first one. Kiddushin is not the best on the second husband. Rabbi Yosef says, Ketubata nikse bala rishon. The ketubah is always on the first, right? On the first husband, which means the first one is going to be zocheh, whatever that he's whatever she finds, okay. So Amar Ravuna said, "Batrai modi lekamai." The last Tanaim they agreed to the first Tanaim. Kamai no but the first ones do not agree to the second, which means the first ones, right? Whether it's Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Shimon, they are modet to Rabbi Yosef. The ketubata is on Tzei Bala Rishon. And Rabbi Shimon is modet to Rabbi Lazar, the Rishon is going to be zocher. But the first ones are not going to be modet to the second one. So Rabbi Yosef is not modet to Rabbi Lazar, and he was like Tanakama that the husband is not going to be zocher. Not a Masechet Yevamot, not a Masechta, not a Father in the Daria. Okay, so means that they are not going to be agreed. Rabbi Shimon model Rabbi Shimon agrees to Rabbi Lazar. He says if Rabbi Shimon says he's not going to be kodesh the isha even to prohibit her to the biatibum, which is like the ikara isur, the choshekin and all the more so mitziata masiyadeh the mamunu, right? Whatever she finds in money is mamun. It's money. It's not isur. Rabbi Lazar no model. Rabbi Lazar it's not model to Rabbi Shimon by mitziata masiyadeh the mamunu kanis, because they didn't make a knas by the mamunu. But biyah is isur. So for kanis they made a knas. The Tarvayu and both of them, Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Shimon, Modi and Rabbi Yosef, they're going to agree to Rabbi Yosef, that they're not going to make a knas, right? Even in this case, the more so that the ketubah also is going to be there. Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yosef says no. Ketubah, the mishkal meipak udelo kanis. They didn't make a knas by the ketubah. But here they did make. Meaning there's going to be a whole question to do with the ketubah. Are they going to make a knas or not? But for sure, though, when we're talking about this case, right, that they're not going to make a knas. Okay? Says the Gemara of Yochanan says Kamai modul batrai lo modul kamai. So here he says the exact opposite. The kamai are modet to the batrai, and the batrai, remember, batrai are the latter ones, and kamai are the former rabbis. Okay, the batrai are not modet to the kamai. Rabbi Yosef, now we're going to explain. Rabbi Yosef, for sure, he's modet to Rabbi Lazar. That what? The ketubah comes from the husband to the woman. So no kanis is no knas. Right? Why? Because even though she was Avrala Yisur, there's no knas. She still gets a ketubah. And Koshken, he gets, right, because it goes from her to him. Rabbi Lazar is not modet to him. Because he says, which goes from her to him, he still gets no kanis. But the ketubah, that it's from him to her, there is a knas. Which makes sense. At the end of the day, think about it. The husband did not do any avirah. The husband didn't know. What is the husband doing? It's her fault, not the husband. Imagine his first husband. First husband did something wrong. He went to the diaspora, and all of a sudden he comes back and his wife is married again. Like, I don't know what's going on here. You understand? The ketubah goes from him to her. But whatever she finds or whatever she works goes from her to him. So therefore, that's what we're saying. So he says, "V'tarvayu model Rabbi Shimon, and both of them model Rabbi Shimon. Umahan v'mechayim lo kanse. If right now he comes and he says that they're not going to give a knas, biyad la'achar mitalo koshken, biyad which is after death is in a koshken, that they're not going to make a knas. Rabbi Shimon lo model Rabbi Shimon is not model to him. Biyad la'achar mitah because biyad is after mitah. So he comes and he says, yeah, no kanis, he didn't make a knas. Aval hani v'mechayim kanis. But these people, they do make a knas. Okay? 2 dots. Niset shelo b'rshut. She got married, shelo b'rshut. So again, one more time, what are we talking? She got married through 2 edim. Okay, and therefore she didn't need the reshut of bet din to get married. She got married to 2 witnesses. 2 witnesses came from the diaspora, and they said the husband dropped dead. So she doesn't need a reshut of bet din. She's got 2 witnesses. Says the Gemara, right? That's halacha. She's permitted to the first husband. Why? She didn't do any avirah. She didn't do anything. Why? Because at the end of the day, she got married with her. So Elmaleh ben Nachman says with Nachman, Ganava gadu v'Elmaleh. He says, why are you hiding? If you hold like Rabbi Shimon, Ema halacha Rabbi Shimon, say like halacha like Rabbi Shimon. Deshmatek Rabbi Shimon kazav is that's going like Rabbi Shimon. Bechite, when I'm going to tell me I mean halacha Rabbi Shimon, mashma filu k'mayta even in the halacha is like in the first case as well. Ema halacha Rabbi Shimon b'achron, just say the halacha like Rabbi Shimon in the last case. Which means, why does Rav Huna say the name of Rav? That's halacha. Say the halacha like Rabbi Shimon, right? So Kashya, it's a good question. Okay? Amar Rav Sheshat, says Rav Sheshat. Amina kinayim v'shachim Rav Amar Rav. I'm going to say that when Rav was sleeping, he was dozing off. That's what he says. You know what happens? All of a sudden you're dozing off and you say something. Yeah? So he comes and he says, halacha miklad plige. He says, halacha, it's mashma that somebody argues on. What do you want her to do? She's forced majeure. In this case, she's forced majeure. You heard? David, this case, she's forced majeure. You have two witnesses. Right? They order furthermore. Tanya, we learned to the right, Kula Reyot Shabbat Torah, En Sichot Emena Get, Chutz Meshet Ishin Set At Yora Betin. All the arayot in the Torah, the person gets married to one of these arayot, he doesn't have to get a get, right, in order to get married to somebody else. Why? Because it's not chal, except for Neshet Ish, that she got married to Hora Betin, right? Which means that when you have one witness that comes, so she's going to need a get from it. Al Pi Bedin will buy a get, only if it's Al Pi Bedin. If it's Al Pi Bedin, she doesn't need a get. Because when it was Al Pi Bedin, that means that the Bedin had to give her special permission to get married. Here, it wasn't a Bedin, it was two witnesses, therefore they didn't need a special permission. So that's why she doesn't need a get. Mani, who is this? Ile Rabbi Shimon. If you're going to come to Rabbi Shimon, Al Pi Bedin, you buy a get. Al Pi Bedin, you need a get. But then we learned to the Rabbi Shimon Asu Bedin Moratan Kizadon Ish Binsha. Right? The Braita says Rabbi Shimon said that the Chachamim they came in the mean the Bedin Moratan just like as Zadon Ish Binsha. Right? Al Pi Bedin Kishkagat Ish Binsha, which means that even if it's going to be, it's not going to be a surah to go back. So therefore, in this case, the Chachamim are coming and saying that it's the Ashma, the guilt is on the woman. Al Pi Edechad. Go by a get. They don't need a get in both cases. So I love Rabbanan. So obviously it's Rabbanan. So it says the Gemara. Rabbi Shimon. Really, it's Rabbi Shimon. The Tari Tzachim. We're going to answer like this. Rabbi Shimon says, "Asu bedim doratan bekavanat ish bisha ubaya get, and she needs a get. Al pi adim kishelo bekavanat ish bisha no baya get, and she doesn't need a get." Okay, so Rashi comes and says, "Linyani surah katani." To do with these two, we're going to say Rachikam. Al su bedim doratan, right? Kizadon ish bisha. Right? Umitzera al balad. She becomes prohibited to the husband. Al pi adim kishtagat ish bisha. Velo mitasra al balad. Then, right? It's not going to be prohibited on the husband. Okay? Fine. So now says the Gemara like this. Ravina. Tzadikala pamubet. Okay? Ravina Amar. There's a third explanation in Rabbi Shimon of the Bright. Ravina Amar. Ravina comes and says, Linyan korban katani. To do with the korban, we said, Asu bedim oratan kizgon ish bisha. Lo mati korban. She doesn't bring a korban. Al pi adim kishkagat ish bisha. Umati korban. However, though, if a person have a relation with an ish b'shogeg, right, through a deen, he does have to bring a korban, right? So according to this, he does have to bring a korban, right? Again, it's like a shogeg, but he still has to bring a korban. Okay, he has to bring a sacrifice. If you want, you can answer, Hakamaita, who's the first braita that she doesn't need to get? So Ravanani. The Taritzachim, this is the way that we're going to answer it, except for an Eshetish that she got married through a bedin. Okay? Fine. Mati Ula. Ula comes and he asks the following question. Mi Amnina, do we say, Maya Haval? Do we say that what could she have done? At the end of the day, we're not going to give her a knas. What could she have done? She had two witnesses. The husband died. What do you want more from her? But now we learned in the Mishnah Gitin, Katav l'shem malchut sheno again, and l'shem malchut madayim, l'shem malchut yavan lebinyan abayit lefurban abayit. Hayab b'mizrach v'ktav marav, marav v'ktav mizrach. Tetzeh mizrach v'zeh v'chol advarim ha'edu. Right? But the same thing, which means like this. Imagine right now they come and they write a get. Right? The sofer comes and he writes a get, and he wrote it not according to the proper time. Whether it's Malchut Sheno Genet, which is Malchut Romi, the Roman government, the Madai government, the Greek government, the Yanabite, the Banabite, right? And then all of a sudden, or he was in the east, he wrote in the west, he wrote in the east. So what do we say? She went and she got married with this, right? With this get. So says the Gemara, she has to leave both husbands. And everything that we just mentioned in our Mishnah, the same krasot happened to her. So says the Gemara, why? Lema, we should say this. Imagine right now, a woman comes, right? A woman comes and she gets, right? We're almost done. Yeah, a woman comes and she gets get in this form. You think she understands in the team that it was written in the get? He was in the east, in the west, this, that, the time. She doesn't understand. She got a get. She comes and she gets married. So now all of a sudden, what do we say? Knas. All these knasot. Why the woman? What do you want from her? So says he says no. She had to give it to a rabbi to read the get. Meaning she had to give it to the chacham to read the get, to go over it, to make sure that everything was okay. The fact that she didn't do it, that's why she's punished, because she should have done it. Meaning you have a paper, get it checked by a lawyer. So here you have a get it checked by a rabbi. Amra Simi Marashi says in Shimi Marashi, Tashema, we're going to come and bring another proof. Imagine right now, somebody takes his Yevamah, right? So somebody gets married to his Yevamah. And now what happens? Sarata goes and she gets married to the Shuk. Nimtzet Zo, and then afterwards what happened is that the woman that he married, which was the Yevamah, was an Elonit. So now what happens is the Sarata now had to do the Yibum. Now she went and she already got married to the Shuk. Right? So what happens? The Tzara has to get out from both husbands, right? And then and all of these knasot as well. Am I wife? Name of my Meva. We should say, what do you want her to do? How is she going to know that this woman's an Elonit? You understand? What do you want her to do? You understand the case or not? She should have waited before getting married. Meaning she should have waited to make sure that she was not an Elonit, right, before coming and getting married to somebody else. Right? That's what she should have done. Okay? So now says the Gemara, right? Amar Rabbi says, Tashema, Kol harayot shamru patrot mitzarotein al futzor tam nisu, nimtzet elu Elonit. Tetzel mizom mizeh, Kol hadachim alelu ba. Amai one. Name of the same thing. What about in the Mishnah? How do we start off in Yevamos? We started off in the beginning of the Masechet that there's going to be 15 women, right? That they're going to exempt their tzarot. That means if they get married, whatever it is, they're going to exempt their tzarot, right? Because of who they are. So now, if they're tzarot when they got married, right? And now, what happens if one of these arayot became an Elonit? So if the arayot became an Elonit, then what happens? Then what happens is, one more time, if one of the tzarot become an Elonit, so then the arayot, so then the other tzara has to get married to the yamam. So again, you have the same question. So answers the Gemara, they should wait. Meaning, don't be trigger happy. Not because the husband died, they go running to get married. Wait, try. Wait to make sure that she's not an Elonit. Amar Rabbi comes and he says, Tashema, we're going to bring a proof. Kataf so we get the Isha, Shuvah Isha. Imagine right now the Super comes and he writes the get to the man. And the Shuvah to the Isha, the time, made a mistake. He gave the get to the woman and the Shuvah to the Isha. Then they exchange. So as it comes out, the woman gave the get to the husband, and the husband gave the Shuvah, which is the receipt, to the woman. It was it had to be the opposite. A man has to give the get to the woman, and the woman has to give the receipt to the husband that he paid the ketubah. Here, the exact opposite happened, right? So now what happens? The naturu zelase ulachar zman, right? And afterwards, what happens? Right? The man has the get, the woman has the shuvah. She has to get divorced from both of the husbands, and also the tznas. But my wife, name it. We could also say the name. What could she have done? I think what could she have done? Answers the Gemara. What are you talking about? She should have read the get. She should get the get read. So Amar Rashi says Tashema, Shina Shemo Shma Shemido Shemida. Imagine right now the Sefer comes and he changes the name, whether it's his name or her name, right? Whether it's going to be all these different names. To tell me also, she has to get divorced from both these cases and all these conditions also as well. Am I what? We should say the name. Answers the Gemara. She should have read the get. Had they changed the name, her name, his name, the name of the city here, they have to change the get. She should have read the get. Amar Ravina says Tashema, Kinasa get Kereach. What if this person comes and he got married to a certain get Kereach? What's a get Kereach? Here it says that they had a certain type of a get, which is called get Mekushat, which in this type of get, after writing all the shura or two shurot, they fold it up, right? And then they leave it halal, right? Exactly. They leave it empty and then they continue and then they tie it together and they give it to her, whatever it is. So it says also. So he says, why? She should have read the get again. Rav Papa Stava and the name of Rav Papa, so now that he actually heard all these halachot, he says, you know what? I'm going to do this. The Ma'avel Meva. What does that mean? What are you talking about? Look, if you're going to tell me now that you wanted to do Ma'avel Meva, look at all these questions against it. So he says, Elmaleh told him, didn't we answer all these questions? Meaning that every single one was a question. So we kept on saying, Ma'avel Meva. The Gemara says, no, she could have been made with something. She could have done something. Look, she could have read the get. She could have done something. So the fact that she didn't do it, that's her fault. We say Ma'avel Meva only the case where she cannot do nothing whatsoever. There are two witnesses that come. They come to the Medina, that's why the husband dropped them. What do you want her to do? Cross-examine the witnesses? The bet didn't do that. What do you want her to do? To send a private spy around the world and look at every single person in the world? It's impossible. What do you want her to do? There we say Ma'avel Meva. But in all the other cases, the answer, she could have done something. She could have read the get. She could have given it to a rabbi to give a get, to read the get. She could have done something. So Elmaleh, he says, what, on all these answers you're going to be somech? Upasak, so actually he actually passed it, right? So he didn't actually pass it. So he didn't actually say that I have a thing. So Amar Rashi says, ulekala lo teshina, right? Comes over here and says this for a kol, we're not going to be choshesh, which means if after she got married through the Reshut Bedin, there's a voice that the husband's still alive, but he's still not here, right? We still don't give her anything. So imagine the husband goes out of town. All of a sudden, one witness comes back, the guy dropped it. Fine. She comes, she gets married. And all of a sudden, there's shmuot coming out. There's the voices. So, yeah, you know what? The husband's still alive. But he still didn't come. So as long as he doesn't come, we don't do anything. Right? Why? Because at the end of the day, he still didn't come. He still didn't show up. Hechal. Ask the woman what type of a call. If you're going to tell me it's a call after she already got married, okay, so Ravashi already said this once. The Amar Ravashi is Ravashi says, Kol Kala. We're going to get to the two dots, right? Kol Kala de Batani Sui. Any call which is underneath it, which is after the wedding, we don't suspect. She says, no. I would have thought to say, since she came to Medina and they permitted her, Kekala the community, it's considered that it was like before marriage. The Titzar, and now she becomes permanent to the second husband. Until the first husband does not come back, we do not suspect anything, and we're not going to say anything until he comes back alive. Have a wonderful, fruitful, and successful